Kia ora bros, it's Galaxy here and welcome to my channel if you're new. Today I am playing Planet Zoo, but this time I am remaking my old zoo from my original series in sandbox mode. If you are not familiar with it, here's a quick bird's eye view of my old zoo. As you can see, it is quite simple, and as it was my first zoo on the channel, you can see that I was testing new things here and there. It is a bit bittersweet demolishing it as we do here, but I think it's for the best. I do intend, of course, for this particular rebuild to be a full series, as this is obviously going to take me a long time to build all of this. And in this episode in particular, I get to building the entrance and a small building for the exhibit animals that we had in the zoo previously. I am not sure if I'm going to add new animals, but I guess we will see. Maybe you guys should let me know for any new animal suggestions. We do have quite a few animals already, but I think it'd also be fun to get you guys involved, especially now that the channel has hit 50 subscribers. I want to do more things that involve you guys. So what do you think? Let me know. Drop a comment and I'll make a poll when I'm done building the main parts of the zoo. Anyway, as you can see here, I'm extending the entrance of the zoo using different parts it already uses, like the wood and the plaster and all that. Since the zoo is already quite big, I wanted to reflect that in the main entrance. I did do some test entrances before recording, of course, and I did realize that I couldn't really delete or attach a lot of things. So I decided, instead of building my own, that I would just extend the one that's already existing. I mean, it does look okay. I would have liked to build something like entirely unique, but it works, and I quite like it. I was originally going to base the entrance off the Auckland Zoo's entrance, which I thought was kind of cool, but once I started building it, I realized that, like, my skill set isn't exactly suited to building something like that. I think maybe, like, far in the future, if I do get better at this game, which I probably will, hopefully, I'll have another go at building something like that. And of course, me practicing with building blueprints in my spare time and on stream had paid off in some way, as I am rather proud of the staff building block I built here. I did of course have to trial and error a few building parts, but in the end I think it comes out really nice. It has all the essentials that I need in this zoo, as well as a little seating spot for the staff, which was initially going to be some kind of driveway, but in the end I placed a picnic table there instead. I don't know if they can use it. I haven't really seen the staff like sit on any of the chairs or anything. I don't even think I've seen the people that visit come in and sit on those things, so I don't know, but I think it looks nice. I mean, maybe we could just imagine that they sit there. Perhaps in Planet Zoo 2 they should have like a build your own like staff room, or have it so visually you could see people sitting on the chairs and stuff. That would be quite nice, just for like visual purposes. I am a very visual person and I like to see things being used and not just sitting there empty, so maybe that's just me. What do you guys think? I mean, what do you guys want in Planet Zoo 2? I've seen there's a lot of requests and stuff. I personally would like the pathing fixed, for example, or like upgraded a little bit. Maybe like in Jurassic World Evolution 3, update some of the ways you can make things like waterfalls and stuff. I quite like that. And maybe have like, I personally would like to see a brush for like different plant types. I like placing them by myself, of course, and I think a lot of people do, but I also think it would be actually quite fun to have like a brush for that, like in Jurassic World Evolution 3, or even all of the Jurassic World Evolutions. I'm pretty sure that that brush is in all of them. So what do you guys think? What do you guys want in Planet Zoo 2? If you drop all your requests in the comment section, they probably won't see it, but we could probably will it into existence, right? Another thing that I also saw, which is a genius suggestion, was perhaps changing the pivot origin point of selection. I saw that on Reddit and I was like, oh my gosh, yes. Because you know when you like rotate stuff in Planet Zoo, the rotation for like a group sometimes like changes. I want to be able to set it to like the center of this entire object rather than having it at random so the whole thing just rotates weirdly. I thought that was like a genius suggestion. And I'm gonna say it out loud because, you know, even though they probably don't watch my videos because, let's face it, I'm tiny, someone has to say it out loud. Even if it's me with my small army. What do you guys think? Anyway, as you can see here, I'm kind of trying to dress up the building a little bit because, you know, it did look a little bit boring. So it took me ages to figure out what kind of like vines I wanted to do on the wall. But I also realized that like there was a prefab that I really liked when I was building a different zoo on Twitch, I think. So I pulled that prefab out and I literally just pulled apart some bits to use because I was like, I really like this building. I'm gonna steal some parts of it. And I mean, some people probably do that to get inspiration and stuff. I mean, it's not like I copied the entire building, it's just that I copied parts that I liked rather than like just remaking the entire thing. I think I also did that with my information building. But yeah, I grabbed quite a few things off this, like the awning, the potted plants, the vines, the black little bits, I don't know what to call those. And of course I do a little bit of testing with things. Some things don't work that I thought might look nice, but I thought it might look a little bit too busy if I picked a lot of things off. In the end though, I think it actually looks quite nice and it works with this style. Though, to be fair, when I bulk up the place with a bunch of plants and stuff, it might not be noticeable at all. Because this zoo, when I built it, I put a lot of plants in the entrance. Because I don't know about many other zoos, but the zoos here tend to have like a lot of plants. So like when you walk through it, there's a lot of like nature and all kinds of stuff like that. Specifically native plants or endangered plants. During the summer as well, the plants, especially the trees, help with providing shade, which in turn helps cool people down so it isn't too hot when they're at the zoo. Which I think is a fantastic idea. It makes it so like the shade is natural and not like a building or anything. As you can see in the current clip, I am placing a lot of plants, as I said. I specifically tried to get more Oceania plants, especially if they were plants from New Zealand, as I imagine the zoo being in New Zealand, so I would assume the plants would be very similar, like in the zoo, obviously not in the habitats and stuff. So I tried to make it look very much like New Zealand bush, you know? So like when you walk around in this zoo, aside from the habitats, you just think that you're in the New Zealand bush. There's no other way of describing what kind of vibe I was going for. And I think I accomplished that to some degree, even if I couldn't find a lot of New Zealand plants. To be honest though, I think Planet Zoo does a good job with New Zealand plants, as I wouldn't expect them to have the entire catalog of native plants anyway, so it's nice to have enough that I can mimic my country in a way even if it doesn't look identical. To be fair, I probably couldn't name half the real life plants anyway, because there's so many, and I like the representation even if it's like this. I mean, I remember when people didn't even realize we existed as a place, or if they did, they didn't even know that much about us as a country, so seeing so much representation, like, in the past few years, especially, in, like, media and stuff, even if people don't always know what New Zealand is, still, it's crazy that a lot more people know of us than before. Like, it's weirdly exciting to see it being included. For me personally, it never needs to be, like, identical. I just like the fact that someone thought of us, you know? Like, someone sat in a meeting and was like, what kind of stuff should we include? New Zealand. The fact that someone thought of New Zealand to put in Planet Zoo is already mind-boggling to me. Because sometimes I feel like we're so small of a country that if I was living in a bigger country, I probably wouldn't know that New Zealand exists. Like, that's how crazy it feels to me, because there's a lot of small countries out there that I wouldn't even know existed if you, like, showed it to me a million times, because they just don't get mentioned enough in the media for me to know. And I feel like that's kind of where, and it's kind of why I'm a little bit, like, shocked that people know what New Zealand is. I mean, for some of you that don't know, there are maps that literally, we just don't exist on it. So, either you know us or you don't. And if you do, like, to me, that's crazy. I love you so much. Because, like, it always shocks me when people know where I'm from right off the bat, rather than taking a guess. So, yeah. I mean, I always assumed that I didn't really have that thick of an accent. And I've been told that by other New Zealanders, but I think it's probably the same with other countries, is that in New Zealand there's like a lot of different kinds of accents that you can find. Like, up north, there's a different accent than down south. And it also depends on, like, I don't really want to, like, put it this way, but there's also, like, different accents between ethnic groups. I don't know if it's like that in other countries, but there is, like, a very, like, specific accent that, say, European people in New Zealand use than, like, say, the native people. Because even though there's different accents per place, there's also different accents per ethnic group. Like, because in New Zealand we technically have 3, like, main languages that we use, which is English, Maori, and New Zealand Sign Language. So I feel like people who speak Maori or are part of that ethnic group, because of the language, there's also an accent that will follow that, you know? I hope that makes sense. Like, I don't know how it is in other countries, you know? Like, New Zealand is so, like, this, it's a huge melting pot, and we haven't really been around for that long, so our accent is kind of, it's a mixed bag, to be honest. Anyway, enough of my rambling. As you can see here, I am building an information center. I tried my best to make sure the building kind of flows with the rest of the buildings that exist in the zoo by using the same materials and the same style, but also making it unique with the tear shape. And I also, again, copied the prefab that already exists to kind of also make it flow with the additional style that I put on the staff rooms. I also really wanted at some point, and I think I do in a live stream I did after recording this part, I'm not sure, is change the blue to green on the roof. As you will see in the video, eventually I will put a few plants and items on the roof, like on the prefab that I'm referencing from. But the blue, of course, sticks out a lot, and I really wanted to change it to green so it kind of blends in more. Regardless, it looks quite nice, and I think I do save it as blueprint for use in the future in other zoos. Next, I start building a food court. Again, I wanted to make it so the food court's appearance was coherent with the rest of the zoo, so I used similar materials and style while trying to make it as unique as I could. The reason I chose to make a food court near the entrance was because I really liked the aesthetic and idea of just having one main building for a lot of food at the front with a big seating area in between all the food stalls, and then maybe smaller little stalls tucked into the back of the zoo. It kind of just feels more intentional, you know? Like, you walk in and immediately there's this, like, central hub of food. And because there's, like, a big roof over the top, when it rains and stuff, it's also a spot for shelter. Maybe there's air conditioning in there to, like, cool it down, you know? I also kind of like the more realism of it, because I feel like in a lot of zoos there's probably, I don't know about overseas, but in New Zealand, there usually is like a cafe or a restaurant or something at like the front, like, and a big like seating area. And I think visually, it helps me frame the zoo better. Like there's a clear starting point, and it makes the layout feel a little bit more cohesive instead of just a habitat right off the bat, like in the original zoo. Like, it is of course quite small, but I think that's kind of the charm of it, is that it's not massive, but it's not tiny, and it does the job. I do of course quite like the design, though I think I could have done it a little bit better. I think for now it works. Perhaps in the future I may do a renovation to make it a little bit more detailed. And I think I struggled a little bit trying to figure out what to do for the interior. Since it isn't really visible when you zoom out, I'm not sure it really matters right now, but I do have intentions to maybe fix it in the future when I get a little bit better at building, especially interior building. And I personally think that part of it is that, like, interiors are like completely different skill to exteriors, because like, if there's parts that I don't really like, you could kind of cover it with like a rock or like a tree, or if it's a little bit funky, you can kind of put a little bit of detail on it that you can't really do interior wise, because on the interior you can't really hide things behind trees. Suddenly you have to kind of think about like the layout, the flow, whether the people can actually go through it. And because you don't really see it when you're zoomed out, there's also this like little voice that like, you know, does this even really matter in the big scheme of things? It's probably unfortunately why I didn't really think about it and kind of left it slightly unfinished. Like, it feels honest. I don't know if that's the right word to use, but like, this rebuild isn't really about being perfect at the game, because I'm not, and it's like more about seeing how far I came in designing zoos and designing the buildings after practicing and actually delving into the build mode. Interior design is definitely one of the things that I've come to accept that I need to improve. But for now, it's functional, it works, you know, no one's trapped inside a wall, and that's already a massive upgrade. I mean, usually I would have just plonked a prefab down and just squeezed a food or drink stall in there, but the fact that I built something myself feels a lot more... it feels more rewarding, you know, instead of like plonking something down and just leaving it at that. And I think eventually I will come back and give it a glow up, but you know, not today. Moving on from the food court, eventually after dressing up the entrance with trees and a seating area, I get to building something for the exhibit animals. Unlike in the original zoo, we aren't going to place something super attractive for the guests right at the front. I think that was one of the reasons I wanted to rebuild the zoo in Sandbox. Aside from the fact that the zoo looked poorly made, I wanted to rearrange where certain habitats were. Because if you remember, the first animal we literally bought was a black panther, which is fantastic, but, you know, plonking something like that right at the front of the zoo doesn't encourage the guests to go out to the back of the zoo, if that makes sense. And I also just really want to build better habitats for the animals anyway. Especially our jaguars. Our jaguars deserve something nice, you know? They're the first animals we bought, especially the black jaguar. But anyway, as you can see, I'm kind of building something similar to what I built in the last episode I did of this particular zoo, where I have several little exhibits and the big sloth exhibit as a walkthrough, and then having it come out into the smaller exhibit area and then having that come out onto the path as well. Because I really liked that build, but I also knew that that particular build wasn't going to really suit the style that I was working with in the new update. Regardless, I tried to keep some remnants of the old build into the new by mimicking as much of it as I could, while making it more new as it is now at the front of the zoo instead of all the way at the back. I also ended up adding the snakes into this particular build too, because if you have seen the other episodes for the original series I made, there was 2 snakes in an exhibit building I made like at the front of the zoo, and I think there was another exhibit in a prefab, I think, in the middle of the zoo randomly. So instead of having them all separate, I've added all those additional animals into this build instead, so they're all in one place. As you can see as well, I'm placing a lot of plants around it like I have with the other builds, and ideally I'm hoping next episode that I will be making a petting zoo of some kind as the first habitats, because we do have the chickens, the goats, and the donkeys, and I think I started a bit in a stream not that long ago, but I also want to kind of restart that because I honestly had no clue what I was doing and I kept getting distracted. So I think I might do some research on what others have done for petting zoos and stuff, as well as some like research on real life ones, so I can have some kind of idea. I'm thinking of perhaps building a barn of some sort, like a massive like barn, and having like the path go through, but then have the 3 habitats. I'm not sure, but you know, we'll see when we get there. As you can see, we have finished building the entrance for the zoo. You come down here and you see the new entrance, the information center, and when you come around here, you see the toilets, of course, and this way you can see the food court, and coming up here you can see the seating area that I made over the river and the little forest area. Coming back down, we have the exhibits and the sloth area. Look at this little dude. Look at the way he's sitting. Isn't he adorable? He looks like me on a long day, relaxing on the sofa. But anyway, you come out through this and all of the exhibits. The nice skylight. It actually looks really nice now that I see it from this point of view. It doesn't look as bad as I thought it was on the inside. And over here is the staff room. You can see we have way too much staff. I do end up firing them all in the live stream because, you know, I wanted to make room for new ones to have it passively running in the back. But yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Be sure to give a like and subscribe for upcoming episodes, and maybe watch the previous series if you want. But anyway, I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now!